Well, he said with the continuation of the sentence, increase your endurance. That's a different type of strength. That's stamina. How long can you run for? Not what your strength is, but how long it will endure.
After getting drained and rebuilt back up, it builds stamina.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what he's saying here. Yeah. Yes. Good evening, Ezra.
What would you suggest to someone who's starting off to try to do Shnai Mikra? Like, how would you suggest someone do Shnai Mikra that's just starting it?
I would ask how long it takes a person to do Shnai Mikra.
Mm-hmm.
Is it taking him 5 minutes? Is it a day? Is it taking him? Let me just silence this thing. Is it taking him 20 minutes a day? Is it taking him 2 hours a day? I think that in order to correctly answer that, it really depends on where a person's holding, how much it's taking out of him. I don't think there's one answer. I would not think that when a person is holding it, investing 2 hours a day to do Shnai Mikra, they should do Shnai Mikra. I don't even know if it's taking them a half hour a day if they should do Shnai Mikra. If it's taking them 5 to 10 minutes a day, that makes sense. Meaning we're working on developing our Torah observance and our Torah knowledge. Shnai Mikra was not meant to take, when Chazal instituted it, they did not mean that it would take you as long as, davening Shachris, Mincha, and Ma'ariv every day. That wasn't their intention. So it depends on where a person's holding. It could be good practice in reading. Could be, for other reasons it's good for a person. But yeah, so I think it really depends on what a person has to invest and what they're going to get out of it. I wouldn't just use it as a yes or no.
When you say a day,
So, I assume you're splitting it up over 7 days, Sunday through Shabbos. That's, I think, the better way to do Shnai Mikra V'Echad Targum. If you do some on Sunday and some on Monday and some on Tuesday, you try to do the Aliyah each day, so then hopefully you do it in like 5 to 10 minutes a day. Okay, that's doable. You leave it all for Shabbos, and then you have to sit for an hour, and you'd rather be sleeping. That's a little bit harder. Right. Some people just like doing it on Shabbos, but I'm saying I think it's pleasurable when a person does it every day. Then they connect to the Aliyah of the week, and each day that there are people who, after Shachrit every morning, they sit down and they do Shnai Mikra every day. So then it's a part of you live the parsha. I'll tell you there are certain tips that I give soldiers when they go into the army, and I would give to all of you if any of you are intending to go to university or to leave yeshiva one day and go into the workforce, in the event that this is on your agenda, so you should know that one of the things that will keep you connected to Judaism and keep you inspired is to do each day, to get into the habit of doing the aliyah of that day. By doing the aliyah of that day, so every day you have a little bit of learning Torah. So getting into that habit of doing Shnai Mikra, if it's with Targum or with Rashi or with Art Scroll, whatever it's going to be, it keeps you. You're connected. You already read about Yosef getting sold. You already read about Yehuda and Tamar. You already read about the butler and the baker and their dreams and whatever. So you're not that you'll read tomorrow. But okay, you're constantly connected. Otherwise, you show up to the Shabbos table and you look at your 6-year-old kid and you say, "Nusa, what parsha is it?" And the kid goes, "Bishalach," and you're thinking, "It's not Bishalach, is it?" Maybe. You go, "Really? You're the father here. You're supposed to know the parsha, right?" We used to have a class that I advertised. I'd have a sign on Rav Listman's door, which showed a kid sitting on his father's shoulders, and it said over it in big letters, "Imagine you're walking down the street with your son on your shoulders, and he asks you a question, and then in small letters, what parsha is it?" And now you're like, I don't remember, right? Won't you feel stupid? You should. So you should know. How are you going to know? If you stay connected, If you're going to wait till Shabbos, you hear Kriyas Torah in the morning. What happened to Friday night? All that quality time. You could have spent at the table with your kid, telling him the story of Yosef, his brothers, etc. There's a lot to talk about. So I think Shnai Mikra, the point you raised, doing Shnai Mikra on a daily basis keeps you in touch. Shalom. What? Shnai Mikra is the rabbis instituted to read the parasha twice and read either Targum, the translation of Onkelos, or some other commentary. Erev Tov, you want to introduce yourself? Does everyone here know Binyamin?
Yeah.
Never heard of him before.
You're here now? You're here these days? I didn't know that. Okay. Good. Okay.
Only Rashi counts, not other Mefarshim.
Okay.
So is that true, or like
True
if I
is a
were to
big
use the
word.
Ramban, if I were to use the Ramban as a Mefarish, would that also count as my Targum?
Look, ideally we prefer Targum or Rashi because they're treated as the more classical ones who cover everything you basically need to know. But there are opinions that go both ways as to whether. That's why I said if you're going to read Art Scroll, read Art Scroll.
Rashi uses the Rabbi Eliezer and Midrash Rabbah a lot of times in his
Right.
commentaries.
Right?
When was the Rabbi Eliezer ever created?
Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer
Yeah.
during the end of the Second Temple era.
Okay.
It's about, if you want, in the introduction of the Radal to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, he goes into the timeline and he argues that it is possibly the most ancient Torah Shabbal Peh work that we have, because it might have been written before the Mishnah. Because if it's at least the original version, our version is developed just like many of our things. Our Mishnah has a little bit of later generation. Our Torah has the last 8 psukim that maybe Yoshua wrote, right? Our Talmud has certain sentences that were stuck in by the Rabbanan Savoroi, the rabbis who were post the Talmud. So everything we have is, you have the core, and then you have the additions. You have parts of Zohar that quote Amoraim, later periods, who were after Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You have in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. You have Reish Lakish. The story of Reish Lakish, the Amora, is quoting Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. How could that be? Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus lived during the time of the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. You still have 300 years till Reish Lakish, right? Reish Lakish was the bandit who, you guys know the story of Reish Lakish?
Jumped the river.
Right, jumped the river, right? Sees an Amora. Reish Lakish was Rabbi Yochanan's brother-in-law. How does Reish Lakish show up in a medrash that was written by Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus? So the answer is that you have the core medrash, and then you have the additions that Amoraim put onto that medrash. So that's how you have the core Mishnah, like Rashi writes, V'achareim lo sifu ki'im me'at. After Rebbe and Rabbi Natan, they didn't add a lot to the Mishnah. In other words, but something they did, yeah. It's, the Mishnah you have has additions, right? Okay. Yes.
I was reading today about Sarach Bat Asher.
Oh, wow. Where were you reading this?
Well, the name came up in some learning, so I pulled it up in Wikipedia of all places.
And okay.
How much of this might take literally? How much?
I don't know what Wikipedia says. I don't know.
Well, can you tell? It sounds like she's somebody. She was one of the 70 who went down to Egypt, and she was also there to ask Shiloh
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yes.
To answer Shiloh from Rabbi Yochanan in his big midrash. Lived over 1,000 years.
Okay. Okay.
Granddaughter, I think.
Right. So we'll have a quick class on who was Serach Bas Asher.
Wasn't she the one who played the, what do you call it, that Yosef is alive?
Oh,
before
very
the
good.
Dragons came, or is that someone else?
Yes, that was her.
All right.
Yeah, any of those stories, I'm not sure if you should believe in that.
Where is that brought down? Is that
If they were considered to be
Midrash?
the most living longest person, then that means they would have been recorded. But
Where is this story brought down? Midrash?
Okay.
Or is it somewhere else?
Let's see. Okay. Should we send out this link?
Nah.
1 second. Send out the link. Copy. Thank you, David, for the link.
The answer is, I mean, she like basically like if you know the equivalent of Eliyahu Hanavi, she seems to be incredibly powerful. Or is she just a story?
Uno momento, por favor. Let's send out this link. Okay, so
What's that cake in the bag for?
I don't
Is that
know.
for us or is that
I don't know
someone
how it
else?
got here.
Alright.
I don't know.
I think the guy who set up the camera.
No, that's the guy who set up the camera. You brought the cake? No, so we don't know where the cake came from. So fine, but I didn't know if the Machon would bring us goodies or not. So I got goodies. Let them eat ragala and let them eat wafers. Huh?
So it was placed here by Eliyahu Hanavi to test.
Could be, or Sarach Basasher. Who knows?
So, do you have the Galatas from the Gemara that are relevant to our week, to this week's parsha?
Uno momento, por favor.
What does purple mean?
Please.
Please?
Por favor means please, yeah. So you're welcome to take wafers and pass them on
Like camera
to.
to say please.
So,
These are part, right?
yes. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be back with Machon Meir. And the question was asked, who was Serach Bas Asher? So that's a good question. It says in the Targum that Asher married a woman who had a child from a previous marriage, and her name was Serach, and Asher raised her. So this is our first example, it would seem, of an adopted child being called the daughter of someone who adopted her, because really, Asher was her stepfather. She was Asher's wife's daughter, this girl Serach. Now, Serach Bas Asher, according to the Medrash, so she was frequently in Yaakov Avinu's home. And when the word came back that Yosef was still alive, so the brothers sent her ahead to Yaakov Avinu's house to start playing music and sing this song that Yosef is still alive. And this would give Yaakov a preparation subconsciously that Yosef is still alive. The pasuk still says that when they told him, "Vayafog libo," his heart froze. Ki lo emin lahem. He couldn't believe him when they told him after 22 years that Yosef was missing that he was still alive, right? But nonetheless, it says in the Medrash that when he came to, he gave her a blessing because she was the first one that gave him this inkling that Yosef might still be alive. And his blessing caused her to have great longevity. When we come to the book of Shmuel, and towards the end of the book of Shmuel, so there's a rebellion by a man named Sheva ben Bichri. He leads a rebellion against King David. David HaMelech has just returned from the most difficult rebellion of his son Avshalom, and they finally made peace, and things seem to be all right when the people of Israel are upset that David HaMelech was first invited back to his kingdom and was first greeted by his own tribe of Yehuda. And so they said, we're 10 tribes, they're one, why are they getting this preferential treatment? And the tribe of Yehuda did not answer them kindly. And in the end, the people were pretty riled up by it. So when Sheva ben Bichri said, we're done with this, we're out, we're not with David HaMelech, so many people sided with him. And this was the beginning of a brand new rebellion. Right? They had just finished one. They had just finished Avshalom's rebellion, and now Sheva ben Bichri was instigating another one. So Yoav gathered the forces. I'm skipping details of the story. Yoav gathered the King David's forces, and they went after Sheva ben Bichri. And they came to a city, a walled city, and the people of the city, they guarded Sheva ben Bichri, and Yoav and his men surrounded the city. And they were preparing to take down the whole city. And then a woman comes out to talk to Yoav. It says there was an Isha Chachama, a wise woman in the city. And she came out and she said, Ani Shlumei Emunei Yisrael. I am from the one who completed the faithfulness of the Jewish people. What does that mean? Shlumei Emunei Yisrael. So our sages say this old woman who's going to come out to talk to Yoav, she was Sarach Bas Asher. She lived a long life, meaning she lived from Yaakov Avinu. It's a factor 210 years, right? From Yaakov Avinu goes down to Egypt. He's going to go down to Egypt in 22 years. So let's imagine that she's like 15 in our parsha. So in 22 years, they're going to go down to Egypt. So she'll be 37. Give them 210 years in Egypt. So now she's 247, right? Somewhere around there. Now we come out of Egypt, and we're going to take another 400 years till King Solomon builds the Beis HaMikdash. It says over there how many years it was when they built the Beis HaMikdash. So when Chazal tell us that Serach Bas Asher was around 14 years or 12 years before Shlomo HaMelech finishes building the Beis HaMikdash in the final years of David HaMelech, so Chazal are telling us that she lived 600 and something, almost 700 years, right? So, okay, Torah begins with telling you that some people lived extraordinarily long lives, but she was functional, right? She's coming out to Yoav, and she says, Mi kan Yoav? Who's Yoav around here? Right? Young lad. She comes to Yoav, right? The chief general, chief of staff of the Jewish people. And she says to him, why do you want to kill the Jewish people? What are you doing here? You're going to kill the whole city? This is a whole city you're going to destroy now. What are you doing? So Yoav says, no, we don't want to kill the whole city. No, it's not what we're here for. There's one man who led a rebellion against David HaMelech, and it's him that we're after. So she says, don't worry, give me a little bit of time. You're going to have his head. We'll throw you his head over the wall of the city. She comes back into the city, and she tells the people of the city, look, I went out there, I spoke to Yoav, and Yoav, he's willing to let us get away with leaving half the city alive. He'll kill half, and half will stay alive, but we don't have much of a choice, because the whole army, we're surrounded. So they said, no, that's a terrible thing. We can't lose the whole half of the city. Who's going to do such a thing? She says, you know what? Let me renegotiate. She goes back out as though she's going back to renegotiate with Yoav. She comes back. She says, you know what? He'll let us get away with not half the city. I don't remember the exact calculation the Gemara says. If she went down to a quarter, if she went to 500, to 100. And she kept like bargaining it down until she came back and said, you know what? Yoav agreed that if we only give him, there's one person he wants. If you give him that person, then the rest of the city can live. So they said, who? So she said, Sheva ben Bichri. So they grabbed him and took off his head and threw it over the wall. And with that, she saved the city, because she built it up where they all felt threatened. They all realized initially that they were all in danger, because in the discussion of should we lose half the city or not, it wasn't like they thought they could win against the chief of staff, the whole army of Israel. So by building it up that way, in her wisdom, she saved the whole city. So, what? -1, right. Here Chazal revealed to us that Serach Bas Asher lived to the final days of David HaMelech. Did she live beyond that? So there are all kinds of people say all kinds of things, but that's already not in the Gemara. Meaning, the Gemara, if I remember correctly, I didn't look it up right now, but if I remember correctly, the Gemara says till this point. Meaning until David HaMelech, I don't remember right now where it is in the Gemara, but if I'm not mistaken, it's a Gemara, that she lived to that point. Beyond that, okay, so whatever, like the Ramban says, things that it says in the Gemara, we're all obligated to. Beyond that, well, maybe not. If it makes you feel good, you could believe she's still walking among us. If you prefer to believe that she passed away at the ripe old age of 800 or 900 or whatever. It's not
Not relevant.
Right? It's like, maybe, okay. When I was a kid, they told us she's still alive. That's what they told us in Cheder. Ah, they told you that too? Okay.
Wikipedia gives a burial location in Iraq. It's supposed to be a Jewish community and a monument and a synagogue.
Okay.
That's Wikipedia.
Say there, I don't know.
That's a grave or where she lives?
Okay.
Tov, do we have more questions?
What was the question that you answered?
Who was Serach Basasher? To our followers online, I have to, Zoom is running out of time. I after Corona, I went back to the free version. So we got 5 more minutes. When we get disconnected, I'll start again and you could reconnect. Yes, more questions?
I'm interested in the parsha.
Yeah, I really think we should cover the parsha. So give me 60 seconds. I'm getting a cup of water and a chumash, and we're going to run through the parsha. But I have to explain to you how I try to do the parsha. Okay? You can tell me to shift, but this is how I used to do it. You can go online and see the sources, source sheets for what we're learning. The source sheets will have tens of sources, but I think it's tedious to hear the parsha with, and the Ramban says, and the Rambam says, and the Sforno says, and the Ibn Ezra says, and da-da-da. Right. So I prefer telling it as a story. And anytime you think, hey, where'd you get that from? You could ask, and I'll try to see if I remember. But I'm basically trying to quote you from different midrashim and rishonim, and walk through the parsha as a story. So that's okay. So if you have, if anything I say strikes you and say, wait, where'd you get that from? So you should know. Now I use another system in teaching parsha. It's called layering, which is I'll tell the same story twice, but each time I'll come from a different angle, and I'm going to use different rishonim to explain the story. So if it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, I am. Now, to the person who didn't catch the story the first time, it sounds like I just repeated the story. If you pay close attention, you'll suddenly hear, hey, wait a second, last time he said this, and this time he said that. I'll give you an example. So Yosef's father prepared for him a coat that had, everyone else had a blue blazer, and his had one little red strip. So the brothers saw Yosef's coat that had all these stripes and theirs didn't. Right? Now you're running away saying, you started with that, you went to that. Right, two shitot. I said Rashi's first pshat, Tosfos says the second pshat. Now, if you didn't pay attention, you walked away with one. Maybe. Right? What does the word pasim mean? Two shitot. So I think it's tedious to start saying you should know. The Gemara says this, and Rashi says that, and Tosfos says that. I just tell it as a story. And if you pay attention, you'll start seeing things and you'll say, wait a second, what did he just say? Which is okay. So give me 1 minute to get a cup of water, and we're going to run through the parsha. And we should also order pizza. So let's. Okay.
And that's what I saw from Rush.
Okay. So 60 seconds, and we'll begin. I get to see Ari. Hi, Ari. That was a nice.
What? Yeah, I guess.
Guys, I have a quick question. Why don't we have Yovel today?
Yeah, later, after we do parsha.
Okay. It's not a quick answer. It's just a long one.
Please. Okay. Let's begin. Parsha. Okay. Good evening, everyone. This week's parsha is Parshat Vayeshev. We are about to embark on probably the most exciting journey in the whole Torah. Parshiot, Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, they're the best in terms of telling the story to your kids. Meaning every word of Torah is precious and is a gem. There isn't a letter in Torah that isn't. Sometimes we see it and sometimes we don't. And when it comes to these Parshiot, when we read the story of Yosef and his brothers, there's incredible message that is eternal for us and for the generations to come. The Kohen Gadol every year on the holiest day of the year goes into the Holy of Holies and slaughters a goat just like Yosef's brothers slaughtered a goat, right? He takes the blood of that goat just like Yosef's brothers took that blood. Meaning on the holiest day of the year, we're still connected to what's going to happen in this week's parsha. Yosef's brothers grab him, they tear off that coat, they're going to dip it in blood and send it back to the father and say, Hakerna, you recognize this? Haketonet min chayim, no, is it your son's garment or not? I don't understand, it's not your brother? No. Is it your son's garment or not? So we have the most moving moments as we read through this week's parsha, next week's parsha. These are parshiot where you are well advised to take some time, open up midrashim, take a Yalkut Mamloes, learn the fascinating and beautiful insights that our sages gave us. It's worthwhile in every word of Torah. But here it's more obvious. It's more...
What does Yalkut mean?
Yalkut means a compendium. Like leket, to gather. And we begin our parsha. I request that questions that are off topic save for after the parsha, okay? We're here tonight, not running anywhere. Bezat Hashem. If you have questions, we will attempt to address them. Let's begin. Vayeshev Yaakov ve'eretz megurei aviv. I don't see a need or a benefit to reading the text inside in this class, so I recommend you can try to follow along inside, but we're going to stick to the story. So if you will want a different style class, you're obviously invited to tell me. But let's first do it this way, and then if you want us to analyze the text, etc., you'll tell me. So it's been a long, hard life for Yaakov Avinu. No one's had it as tough as Yaakov. Avraham and Yitzchak, with all their challenges in life, did not have to deal with what Yaakov Avinu dealt with. No one had their wife exchanged. Yaakov intends to marry Rachel, and he ends up with Leah. He has to build his whole life with a woman who he didn't intend to marry. That didn't happen to Avraham and Yitzchak. Avraham and Yitzchak were not on the run for 22 years from a brother who wants them dead. Avraham and Yitzchak did not have a situation where their daughter was violated. They did not have a situation where their two sons went behind their back and created a dangerous, Yaakov Avinu in last week's parsha, after Shimon and Levi annihilate Shechem. So he says to them, "Achartem oti, you've destroyed me. That's it, I'm done." He doesn't see any natural way that all the partners and friends of Shechem won't gang up on him. He says, I'm done. That's it. You made a move, but you didn't talk to me and you finished me. So there's a nace that he doesn't get killed that time. But Yaakov Avinu's life is hard. Avraham and Yitzchak, they get malachim that help them. Ki malachav yitzavelach lishmorecha b'chol drachecha. They have angels that help them. Yaakov Avinu has an angel that's battling him. He walks away limping. Yaakov Avinu is the galus. It's the yid that we all are. It's the yid that has to deal with the darkness, the situation that he's oppressed, the situation that he's cheated. Lavan cheats him over and over again. Ve'chalifet maskurti aseret monim. He tells his wives, you know how many times, tens of times, Lavan kept changing the deal on me to try and rip me off. So Yaakov Avinu's life is very difficult. Our parsha is where Yaakov Avinu has finally made it back to Israel. Lavan's behind him. Lavan's gone. They have a deal, right? You ain't crossing this pile of stones. I'm not crossing the pile of stones, right? Says to him, Eida galazeh. Esav's gone. Esav went off to Seir. Shechem is gone. Each one of these left their scars on his life. But Vayeshev Yaakov says, you know what? Let me start doing what I have to do, developing my family, developing the Torah, developing the Jewish people. Yaakov wasn't looking to buy pizza and ice cream. Bikesh Yaakov leishev b'shalva. I made a shahakol earlier. Yaakov wanted to have the tranquility necessary to develop the Jewish people the way he wanted. And the Rabban Shalom said, nope. Life isn't about that. In order for you to advance in life, you need challenges. Not only Avraham Avinu had 10 challenges, Yitzchak and Yaakov had challenges in their own rights because we grow from challenges. And we daven every day. Al tivienu lidei nisayon. They say, Rabban Shalom, I don't want, please, don't test me, right? We don't ask for challenges. David HaMelech asked for a challenge and he regretted it. We don't ask for challenges. But the Rabban Shalom says, you were sent to this world to work. You were sent to this world to deal with challenges, and that's where you can grow. I'll tell you a quick story, just because sometimes we need to know that in order to deal with the challenge correctly, we should reach out. It was, I don't remember how many years ago, about 17, 18 years ago, and I was accompanying, I was given the responsibility to stay with a person who was on the verge of dying. And it was clear that the person wouldn't live more than another few hours, maximum a day. And it wasn't clear halachically if the person was considered alive or not, right, in their state at that time. And I was there, and it was pretty grueling, being with the person who is there's no natural way they're ever going to open their eyes or talk or anything. It's just, you're just sitting with them till they pass. So it's like 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm really pining for some sleep. I want to go to sleep. And I asked the nurses, I say, what are you, what are your instructions in terms of putting food in his feeding tube and giving him the stuff he needs? Because he's going to die, and I know he's going to die, but what are you going to do to keep him going? So they said, well, our hospital, we have exact directions from the rabbi of the hospital and from the doctors how much food we give him that will prolong his life and not shorten it. Because if you give him more food than necessary, then that causes him to die earlier, because then it puts an unnecessary strain on his body. So we have exact measurements and exact hours, and that's what we do. So I thought to myself, what a good answer. He's in such good care. I can go to sleep. That's my Yetzer Hara talking, right? I want to go to sleep. But Baruch Hashem, I felt I was weak, so I called the rabbi of the hospital, and I said to the Rabbi, I'm here. There's a ward. There are a lot of people who need care, and the nurses told me that you have instructions from you that they're going to stick to it. According to the clock, the right volume, they're going to feed the person. But I'm just wondering, when you're treating 30 patients who you think are going to live and one patient who you know is going to die, are you really so careful like they told me? Do I have to be here to make sure they feed him, or can I go to sleep? Can I trust them? Or, at the end of the day, they're busy. So they might not do it. They might miss a feeding or who knows what. So the rabbi of the hospital said to me, you have to be there. You have to make sure they feed him each time. And so I sat there on the sofa in the room, and I got my hour or whatever sleep, and then I went up and made sure they fed him. And I got my next hour, and I made sure they fed him. And this was my miserable night. It was difficult emotionally, it was difficult physically. And then the person passed like at 11, 12 the next morning, right? And I'm forever thankful to the rabbi who told me, you better be there, right? Because today, what difference does it make if I got a good night's sleep that night or not? But I felt like I wasn't going to stand up to the test, right? I was going to tell myself, it's okay. They gave you a good answer. Why not trust them? This is what they do every day. So I called someone else and I asked. And that person said to me, no, I think you should be there. I think that's what you should do. So when we learn that Hashem sends us challenges, that doesn't mean we shouldn't reach out and get some help. Sometimes you say, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to stand up to this challenge, so get some help, right? A person says, we help one another. So Yaakov Avinu wanted to have the tranquility to develop the way he thought he should, and the Rabban Shalom had a different plan, and this is the opening Rashi in our parsha, which is so important. Bikesh Yaakov leishev b'shalva, kafat alav rogzo shel Yosef. Yaakov wanted to sit in tranquility, and Hashem sent him the difficulty of the story of Yosef, and the Rabban Shalom said, the pious are going to have the world to come where it's peace and quiet. That's it. This world is meant to work. And this is important because we sometimes think that life should be smooth. Life should be easy. Why is it difficult? I made aliyah. Shouldn't my parnasa work? Shouldn't my community work? Shouldn't my relationships work? I'm doing what's right. Yeah, okay. Even if you're right, Yaakov Avinu was doing. Recognize the correlation between his life and Yosef's life. In truth, Yosef was the child he wanted. He didn't mean to marry Leah. And Yosef was the child he finally had from Rachel, the wife he wanted. And he saw in Yosef talent that was unparalleled. At the age of 17, he was smarter than all the other brothers. We're going to see how he saves the whole world when he oversees the Egyptian empire and ensures that there's enough sustenance for the whole world. So he is really a super genius, this Yosef. And as often happens when people are super geniuses, they have sensitivities for all kinds of people. Yosef will be sensitive to 2 Arab doctors, Egyptian, not doctors, Egyptian servants in the jail cell with him. Yosef will be considerate of the sheep, he'll be considerate of everyone, but he won't notice how he's trampling on his big brothers who are his superiors, and yet he's smarter than them. And he doesn't notice how, when he comes back and reports to his father and says, your kids are doing things that are wrong. They're treating the daughters of Bilhah and Zilpah as servants when they should be treating them as equals. We're all 12 tribes, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah. And Yaakov Avinu sees in Yosef brilliance, and he's right. And so Yaakov Avinu sees that if the brothers would only listen to Yosef, they'd be more successful. So when he prepares everyone a blazer, Yosef's blazer has a red strip around the sleeves, ketonet, a garment, pasim, by the pasayad, by the palm of the hand, there was a strip of melat, very fine wool. And when the brothers saw that everyone gets one, and he gets the different one, so that drove them crazy. And our sages tell us that although it was decreed that we would be in Egypt for 400 years, you see that the first 190 years counted on the godly clock throughout Yitzchak's life and Yaakov's life. Hashem said, they're strangers, life isn't good for them. That's what I told Avraham Avinu. Geri ezaracha be'eretz lo lahem. How long will they have to live in va'avadum ve'inu otam? How long will they have to be in servitude? That wasn't decreed. Our sages had a tradition, which if you notice, Hebrew is different than English in this. In English, we have what's called a modifier. If I say, I want you, you came, and you came, and you came, and, okay, I guess that's not a good example. Just a second. If you do this, then so then things will work out well for you on the land that you will see tomorrow. Does the word tomorrow go on you will see, or things will go well for you tomorrow? I said things will go well for you on the land that you will see tomorrow. The word tomorrow is the land that you will see, or things will go well for you tomorrow. Which one? So in English, that's called a modifier. The word tomorrow, we say that if it's every morning. Leman yirbu yemechem b'mei v'nechem, so that you will have longevity. Al adama asher nishba Hashem la'avotechem latet lahem, on the land that Hashem promised your forefathers to give them, like the days of the heaven and earth. To give them like the days of the heaven and earth. Kimei hashamayim al haaretz. That's a modifier. Kimei hashamayim al haaretz, right? Like the days of that heaven are over earth is going on what? It's going on, you will have longevity. Leman yirbu yemechem b'mei v'nechem. That means in Hebrew, I'm just coming to illustrate that a modifier can go back on the beginning of the sentence. So when the sentence says, Yadoa teda, you should know with certainty, Ki geri ezaracha be'eretz lo lahem, your descendants will be sojourners in a land that's not theirs, va'avadum ve'inu otam, and they will make them work, and they will afflict them, arba me'ot shana. So in English, the words arba me'ot shana, 400 years, means that's how long they will be afflicted. But in Hebrew, it doesn't work that way. And if you pay attention, this is true in our davening. I gave you one example. It's true in all of Tanakh. A modifier does not have to go back directly on the words that preceded it. In Lashon HaKodesh, in Hebrew. Okay, you guys followed the concept?
It can, but doesn't count.
Correct. What?
So how do you know the difference?
So the Gemara says that the 400 years were not 400 years that we had to suffer. The 400 years could have been 400 years that Ger Yezaracha you will be strangers in the land for 400 years. Now that's what happened in Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov's lifetime. The 210 years that will begin in next week's parsha, when we go down to Mitzrayim, well, that's the final 210 years. So our sages say, "Le'olam al yashaneh adam b'no ben abanim." A person should never treat one son different than his other sons, or one offspring different than his other offsprings. She bishvil mishkal shnei slaim melat, because of the weight of 2 coins of fine wool that Yaakov gave Yosef more than his other brothers. That's why we went down to Egypt. We could have gone through the whole 400 years in Canaan as strangers in the land. Didn't have to play itself out that way. So our sages say don't treat one child differently. One second, did you follow that? Don't treat a son differently. You have 12 kids, one's a genius. Our sages say it was a mistake. One's a genius, and if he runs the show, your whole family will succeed. Fast forward 22 years, he runs the world's greatest economy, the world's greatest army. He is one of the longest living kings in Jewish history and in Tanakh history. When Pharaoh dies, they appoint him as the next king. He makes Egypt into an incredible empire. He's going to live for 80 years as king of Egypt, right? From age 30 till 110. And so he certainly was capable.
Age 30 to 110?
Correct. Check. Yosef ben 30 shana be'omdo lifnei Paro, the pasuk says. And then it says, Vayamot Yosef ben 110 shanim, vayisem Aaron b'Mitzrayim. Look at the pasuk. So we move on. So, even though Yaakov correctly knows that if Yosef will run the show, things will be successful, Yaakov should not have done that, our sages say. Yaakov should have treated them as equals, but they're different. But you can't treat one son differently. Now, you will Be'ezrat Hashem all merit to be parents. Say amen. Oh, so when you have children, you will see that there are kids that have different talents, and there are kids that you get along with, and there are kids that drive you crazy. And you have to figure out how to give them all the feeling that they're all equal to you, even though there might be one that's driving you crazy. That doesn't mean you can treat them differently. Now, I have to apologize. I did not yet order the pizza, so give me 60 seconds to order it, and we will continue. Recording stopped. Okay.
What did you do at 33?
1 second.
You had mentioned that you went down to Egypt because of the code, right? But would the 7 years of famine have happened anyway, regardless? Or was that also another sub-cause because of... Is it because you went down to Egypt, then we had the 7 years of famine? Is that relevant at all? Again,
You will hear an answer to your question as we continue the parsha. But if you want a short answer, then I don't know. If you want a long answer, I'll give it a mitzvah as we go forward. No.
הקישו 1. להמשך המתנה על הקו והזמנה מנציג טלפוני, הקישו 2.
Give us just 1 second. We're coming back to the parsha. In 1 minute, we're coming back to the parsha. Give me a minute. I don't want you to stop the recording because we have viewers. So give me 1 minute. שלום, רציתי בבקשה להזמין שני מבקשים.
What time do you want me over tomorrow?
What?
What time do you want me over tomorrow?
What do you like?
What you like?
She's gonna be over there from tonight. Usually gonna be over here.
Oh, she already came back. All right. Can you bring me wine? You know?
I think he may be off the list.
Yeah. All right. I'll should have been something else then. You are, or you're making?
The Shabbos.
Okay, I apologize for the pause, and we'll continue. We will, Bezrat Hashem, learn about dream interpretations, I hope, this week. So, and then we'll get to your... It's not milchik, it's parvo also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not want to have dairy or something? I ate meat earlier with my siblings. Gone out.
Don't worry. Be happy.
Okay. I'm going to double check.
Yeah, don't worry. Okay, we continue.
Do you want to talk after this class? What? Do you want to talk after this class
So,
or next week?
there was an enmity that was developed here when Yosef portrays his brothers as unworthy of continuing the Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov chosen people. So they feel threatened that the same thing that happened, that Yaakov became chosen and Esav was out, Yitzchak was chosen, Yishmael was out, that's about to happen to them. So Yosef has a dream. And our sages say, En adam cholem ela mehirurei libo. We dream what we contemplate during the day. And that's one of the reasons that the halacha says that a person is not allowed to see pornography, a person is not allowed to allow his mind to wander to all kinds of places that a person will naturally go to, because it will affect the first of all, the thought itself is wrong, right? We say it in Kriya Shema, but also because the chance that a person will have an emission at night is really a product of what a person thinks about by day. So a person is supposed to control their thoughts. It's one of the 10 commandments, right? Don't covet, right? So what do Chazal tells? How do you control that? You get married. So Chazal say, Hashem says, I gave you a kosher way to live life, and that's what a person should be doing. So our sages say, whether you like it or not, your dreams are a product of what you think by day. That's rule number one. There was a rabbi, the Talmud says, who was summoned by the Roman emperor. He says, tell me what I'm going to dream about tonight. So the rabbi said, well, there's this neighboring country that you're concerned is going to attack you. Which I don't remember who it was. And you're going to dream about whether you're going to win or not. So all day long he kept thinking, am I going to dream about that or not? So he was busy with it all day, and that night, that's what he dreamt. So when Yosef tells the brothers, I had a dream. We were piling bundles in the field, and then my bundle stood up, and your bundles all bowed down to it. So the brothers fall into their own trap. Because the next rule the Talmud tells us about dreams is dreams only go after the interpretation. Correct? Yes. So, yeah. So when the brothers tell him, you think you're going to be our king? Bang! They just gave the wrong interpretation of the dream. They just interpreted the dream that he's going to be king. Intrinsic to their claim was an interpretation of the dream. So they got very upset at him. He has another dream. And he says, I had another dream. The sun and the moon and the stars, they're all bowing to me. So the first dream, that was true. Over the grain, everyone's going to end up bowing to him in next week's parasha. The second dream is more intrinsic. Each of the tribes is a star. They're all going to bow to him. And every dream, our sages say, just like every item has impurities, doesn't matter what you're harvesting. Malateven et abar. The pasuk says, whenever you collect bar is the grain, there will always be some teven. There'll always be a little bit of the stalk that's mixed in. You try to filter it out. You filter again, but there's always going to be some that's mixed in. Even legally, there's a law of how much you're allowed to have mixed in, how much soil, how much bugs, how much, right? Every item has an imperfection. So Chazal say dreams are the same way. Every dream has something that's not true about it. Chazal say no dream comes true perfectly, right? So Yosef has a dream, the sun, the moon, the 11 stars. So what's his father's claim? His father's claim is, your mother's dead. How is she going to come back to you? Okay, that's not a claim. And we know that Esav and Yaakov are both called the sun, right? And that's why Yaakov is shocked, right? We had in last week's parsha. It says, Vayizrach lo, it shone for him. For whom did it shine? Hashemesh, for Yaakov Avinu, who's called Shemesh. The sun shone for Shemesh, for Yaakov, who's called Shemesh. Yaakov and Esav are both called sun. That's their code in Kabbalistic terms. I don't know Kabbalah, but that's what it says. So it says, I really don't know Kabbalah. But that's what it says, that Yaakov and Esav are both called the sun. So,
How do we know that sun was referring to Yaakov and not Esav?
good question. Read the rest of the pasuk. Can you tell me?
I don't know the pasuk.
Okay. Kasher avaris Penuel, and Esav didn't pass Penuel. I didn't say that.
Who's the first moon then?
I didn't answer that. I said I went with the Gemara's interpretation that was a part of the dream that did not come true. So,
I heard that Bilhah was supposed to be
mother and
the
I and bow down to you.
right,
So it means, by Yaakov's interpretation, Rachel would be the moon.
right,
I've heard that Bilhah was ended up as the moon.
right.
She's an extension of Rachel.
Very good. Everything you said is right. Very good. That is right. So,
I don't necessarily know where I pull everything out from.
what?
I don't necessarily know where I pull everything from.
I told you from in the beginning. You could look online and see my sources. Go to torahforme.com and see.
I don't know where I pull everything
Ah,
out from. So
okay.
I'm bringing things out from school and from wherever
I'm
else,
confused right now.
and they don't
Why?
know the sources.
Benjamin named his 10 sons,
Right.
referring to his longing to meet Yosef for the first
Correct.
time ever because he never met him.
Who says that?
That's what I heard.
So ask whoever said that. So Yosef's brothers went. I need a break. I want to eat. I want to drink. I want to. Yeah, if that's what you're thinking about, it doesn't usually lead you to positive places. A person has to rest. A person has to take a break. A person does not have to be focused on themselves. It's two different things. Think about it. You do have to rest. You do have to take a break. Moshe Rabbeinu also took a break. Every person needs time to think and to rest. But a person does not have to be focused, a time of self-indulging. Let me go stuff myself up. And our sages say that in this move that the brothers went back to Shechem, an area that was really a hotbed, they just wiped out Shechem. So who moved in? They left Shechem. Think about it. A city, Jenin is wiped out, right? So who's going to move into Jenin? The Palestinians, whatever, who live nearby. They're going to end up sitting there. And they're not going to like Yosef's brothers, right? So Yosef's brothers, they head out to Shechem. That's not, that's a little dangerous. Maybe a lot dangerous. So what does Yaakov do? Something that he's going to kick himself for the rest of his life until he discovers Yosef's alive. He says to Yosef, I'm worried about your brothers. Could you go see if they're okay? So Yosef's going to go alone. They're 11. He's going alone to check out on his brothers, right? You guys all know how Netanyahu's brother was killed, right? Right? In Entebbe, he led the Israeli troops to bring back the hijacked citizens of Israel. And at one point, one group had to find him. So they thought it was safe. They shone the light on him, and then that other group saw where they were, and they came to them. But when they shone the light on him, so one of the towers that had a machine gun still killed him, right? So Yaakov is sending Yosef to take care.
Night goggles are probably better.
What?
Night goggles might be better than.
Sends Yosef, and he takes him from the top of the mountain, Hebron, and he walks him all the way down the mountain. And Yosef says, Dad, you don't have to come with me down the mountain. It's okay. And Yaakov says, no, I want to explain to you. There's a concept of Egla Arufa. The final lesson Yaakov is going to teach Yosef is there's this custom that the nations have, which in the future the Torah will purify for the Jewish people. That if a person is found murdered, you bring it to a place where there's nothing growing, a stream, and you don't slaughter it the kosher way, but you do the reverse of a slaughter. The slaughter from the back down, and after you slaughter this calf in that way over there, so the leaders of the Jewish people have to come and make a declaration. Yadeinu lo shafechu et adam hazeh. Our hands had no responsibility in the spilling of this man. We took care of our society so that murderers don't get away with it, so that people who are underprivileged feel like they're not alone, so that people don't feel like they can exploit or murder someone just because they're underprivileged. And we have in our communities, part of the declaration that the elders will have to make is, in our community, when a person leaves, we accompany them. We make sure they don't feel alone and get in danger. And just like the elders will say that in the Jewish people, so too I am accompanying you, Yosef. And this is the final lesson of Egla Arufa that Yaakov is going to teach Yosef. Yosef's thinking about this. Where is this? Part of what I said is a Gemara in Sota. Part of what I said is the Sephorno over here. Part of what I said is Rashi later on. Vayari Yisrael et Agalot, Asher Shalach Yosef. So Rashi over there on the pasuk Vayari Yisrael et Agalot, it says Yaakov wouldn't believe the brothers until he saw the wagons. So Rashi says, why were the wagons such a big deal to Yaakov? Rashi says, because Yosef said to the brothers, if he doesn't believe you, tell him the last thing he taught me was Egla Arufa. That's Rashi over there. Vayari et Agalot. And then he believed them.
So what's the connection between the wagons and the egel?
Agala and Egla. But I'll give you a better explanation. Give me a second. Of the Gid Anashe that we had in last week's parsha. In last week's parsha, all the kids did what kids naturally do. They said, "That's okay." When Yaakov Avinu went to collect the pachim ktanim, the few flasks that he left behind, so no one went with him. He has 12 warriors there. It's a scary night. And you see that in the end, Yaakov gets beaten up, right? He has a very big struggle. Why didn't any of the kids go with him? Because the nature of a human being, Chazal say, is Rachamei Aval Beno. A father has compassion for his son, Rachamei Ben al Beno. And a son has compassion for his own son. But does a person look back and say, I should really take good care of my parents? Comes the Torah and says, you should. But within our nature is to have compassion for the next generation and to tell ourselves that our parents are our parents. They take care of me. They don't need me to take care of them. They're doing well. And that's a mistake. And that's why the children of Yaakov took upon themselves not to eat the Gid Anashe, to tell themselves, I better take care. I was wrong that I let my father go along. Look, he got hurt in the Gid Anashe. So Yaakov, accompanying Yosef, is teaching him, this is how you take care of someone. You walk with them. You make sure they go off safely. And you know what? When Yosef's going to bring Yaakov down to Egypt, he's going to do just that. He's going to send his top wagons to make sure that Yaakov has a safe journey coming into Egypt. That's the lesson of Egla Arufa that his father taught him. Take care of someone when they're going out to a journey. Now, I'll tell you a quick story because a number of years ago, one of my parents needed to undergo surgery. And it was a tricky surgery. And I was here in Israel, and they were there. Israel, they're experienced, they're in America, they have top doctors. What's it got to do with me? I don't know, what am I supposed to do here? With you, who's the doctor, what's the surgery, and is this the best option? And I was surprised. I got involved. And I did research from here. And it even shocked me that doctors from the United States had no problem calling me here to Israel. Once upon a time it was expensive, so I thought doctors wouldn't call. And their secretary said, what's the big deal? They'll call you. And they did. And because I got involved, they changed the surgery. They changed the hospital, and my father to this day says it saved his life. that changing, they would have done a completely different surgery in a completely different hospital with a different doctor. And it taught me because I didn't think I would accomplish anything. I thought I was being polite. How are you? What are your thoughts? What are you doing? Right? I was being nice. I didn't really believe I could do something. And I heard that there's this psychological block that people have, that people are so accustomed that their parents take care of them, that when parents reach an age that you should be looking out for them, that when they go to a doctor, you say, hey, maybe I'll go with you. Maybe it's better to have 2 years better than one, Maybe 2 heads are better than one. Let's listen together. Most people are unprepared for that. This comes up like on the Seder night, where parents host their kids, and then the parents get old, and they say, maybe it's time to do things differently. And sometimes, much to one's disbelief, the children say, what do you mean? Of course we're coming to you for Seder. We've been doing it for years, right? It doesn't dawn on the kids, maybe your parents can't handle it anymore. Why not? Because kids have a very hard time making that switch to thinking, my parents are getting old. Kids don't want to think that. So they're not prepared for the responsibility that kids have for parents. So when Yaakov walks Yosef down the mountain and he's accompanying him, yeah, that's natural. Of course dad's taking care of his son. Comes the Torah and tells you, but you have a responsibility to take care of your parents. So that's the story of Eglah Rufa. So Yosef is going, and we know it's the angel Gabriel who's taking good class. I don't know who it is. Shalom. אתה כבר פה? יופי, אז נרד אליך. Who wants to go down and pay? איפה אתה? ליד הבניין החדש או הישן? יופי, אז יש לך קבלה? יופי, אז נגיע אליך. תודה רבה. תודה רבה. So it is our pizza. Okay, so should David say that? I'll continue till he gets here. So the angel Gabriel, some man finds him in the field, and he asks him, what are you looking for? And he says, I'm looking for my brothers. In Hebrew, the word brother is ach. The word ach means to connect. When there's a tear in the clothing and you sew it together, it's called mitacheh. When a wound heals, it's called mitacheh, to heal. To fuse two things together is called ach. Ach is fusion. So the difference between Hebrew and any other language is that in Hebrew, every letter of every word has meaning, and every word has meaning that stems from its root. But you have to know enough to know what the real root is and where it connects.
Where was Yaakov during this? You said that the brothers went to Shechem.
Yaakov, it says, was in Hebron. No, they moved away. They had moved away. So this man comes to Yosef, and what does Yosef say? Et achai ani mevakesh. Am I looking for my brothers, or am I looking for my connection to my brothers? We read the word achai as my brothers, but our sages say that's not what he said. He said, I'm looking for my connection with them. And then the man's answer becomes completely different. What does the man answer him? Nasumizeh, they've gone from it. He's not talking about location. He's talking about what were you looking for? Connection? Forget it, man. They're not there. So,
How does the man know?
our sages say this was Gabriel, but whatever. We'll say he heard them talking. So, he says, they're finding excuses to do you in. And Yosef says, I will pursue peace with them. And he goes and he sees them from afar. So Shimon and Levi, they see Yosef and they draw their bows. They say, let's just finish him off now. And then they say, let's sick the dogs at him. Why should we shoot the arrow? So the dogs are reluctant. They run back. And then they say, you know what? When he gets here, we'll do him in. And they start talking about how are we going to finish him off? Let's knock him off, throw him into one of the pits here because he is a rodev. David, let's take it outside, as they say. How do you guys know this? I mean, I have a history, but what's yours? Okay, So we'll continue here Bezrat Shem after our scrumptious pizza. So
Some of what you say actually connects with what I've heard before, and now
I
hearing
stop?
it
Yeah.
makes sense.